Well, to many, it seems so simple. In plain sight for all to see, the US president committed the crime of obstruction of justice, calling on his attorney general to end the Russia investigation. But the White House says it's not an official presidential order, just the opinion of one American exercising his First Amendment right of free speech. CNN's Jeff Zeleny begins our coverage.
Thank you very much. It's my great honor to be here today.
President Trump dramatically escalating his attack on the Russia probe today, explicitly calling on Attorney General Jeff Sessions to shut it down. After railing against Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation for more than a year,
It was a total witch hunt.
the president taking an extraordinary step further by asking to end an inquiry that involves him. This is a terrible situation, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions should stop this rigged witch hunt right now, before it continues to stain our country any further, the president saying on Twitter. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders defending the president's statement, saying he was offering his own view of the investigation.
It's not an order, it's the president's opinion, and it's ridiculous that all of the corruption and dishonesty that's gone on with the launching of the witch hunt.
But the president's call to end the investigation took his criticism to a new level. The special counsel is already looking into Trump's tweets as part of a potential obstruction of justice probe.
The president is not obstructing, he's fighting back. The president is stating his opinion.
Yet it's an open question where a presidential opinion ends and a presidential directive begins.
When he tells you something as a member of his staff, how do you know if it's a directive from the president or if it's simply his opinion?
The president makes it pretty clear when I'm having those conversations with him.
The president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, echoed the defense.
He's established a clear sort of practice now that he expresses his opinions on Twitter. He used the word should, he didn't use the word must, and there was no presidential directive that followed it.
The president has been furious at Sessions since the spring of 2017 when he recused himself from overseeing the Russia investigation.
The attorney general made a terrible mistake when he did this and when he recused himself.
Since Sessions stepped aside, the Russia probe is overseen by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. He was not mentioned by the president today.
Does the president know that Jeff Sessions can't stop the investigation? Has he directed Rod Rosenstein to?
The president's very well aware of how the process works. Once again, he's stating his opinion.
Now, Sessions, for his part, had no comment on the president's latest tweet. He, of course, has become very practiced in insults from the White House here. One other matter, Rudy Giuliani saying it's time for Bob Mueller to put up or shut up. Important to note, one of the delays in all of this, President Trump has yet to decide if he will sit down for an interview with the special counsel. That is one of the factors that has drawn this out even longer. Jeff Zeleny, CNN, the White House.
Well, for more, let's bring in our panel, political commentator and host of the Mo Kelly Show, Mo Kelly, Republican strategist Charles Moran, and criminal defense attorney David Katz. Okay, in case anyone missed the White House talking point of the day, once again, here's Press Secretary Sarah Sanders on that tweet from her boss.
It's not an order, it's the president's opinion. The president is stating his opinion. There's no reason he shouldn't be able to voice that opinion. The president is stating his opinion. I think I've clarified this about 10 times now. It's the president's opinion.
Okay, Mo, when that opinion, though, comes from the leader of the free world, from the president of the United States, the guy who sits in the Oval Office, it tends to carry a whole lot more weight and authority than something you and I might tweet out. And with that comes, if not a legal, commitment, but also comes with a kind of a moral and a moral responsibility as well.
Yeah, we could look at his previous opinions and tweets, how they've negatively and adversely affected companies on the stock market. Obviously, the world listens to what he has to say, whether we agree with it or not. But this also speaks to why he will not sit down for an interview, and his legal counsel doesn't want him to, because he's so undisciplined and will speak whatever's on his mind, even if it comes to his detriment.
Okay, David, what are the legal ramifications here, especially because we know that Robert Mueller is actually looking into the other tweets that the president has put out there, in particular to do with Jeff Sessions, as well as James Comey, and what he was thinking around the time and also his intent.
Well, this could be obstruction of justice. When I was assistant U.S. attorney, I would look at a target or a subject like President Trump, and I would say, what's on his mind? What's he trying to do? Is he just expressing his opinion? It seems more likely that what's on his mind is to try to impede the investigation of himself and of his family and associates. And then the question for obstruction of justice is the intent That's enough. The bad intent, the corrupt intent, and asking what's on his mind. And then in terms of him not talking or giving a statement, I guess the fear there is that he might commit perjury because he'd be under oath.
We'll get to that in a moment, but about a month before Sean Spicer left the White House podium to disappear into oblivion, he did clarify one very important legal point when it comes to presidential tweets.
Well, the president is the president of the United States, so they're considered official statements by the president of the United States.
So, Charles, technically, you know, putting this tweet out, it seems to me it would be the equivalent of putting out a presidential statement, you know, with the seal and the gold lettering and everything else that goes with that, basically for the president saying the Attorney General should shut down the Russia investigation or witch hunt. I mean, would that make a difference to you if it came out in that form as opposed to Twitter?
I know everybody's trying to squeeze these things together and make them touch, but it's
I'm just saying
not
this is what Sean Spicer says. It's an official statement.
It's where I see the trying to bridge the gap, but it's not there. And Sarah Sanders said it. Rudy Giuliani has said it. We're at a place. Clearly, President Trump is frustrated with the situation. He is going to his preferred tool of expressing himself, Twitter, to do this. But he knows that Jeff Sessions can't shut this thing down. He's recused himself of this. He did not direct an order to the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General. Again, this is a very raw expression of the president's frustration.
Explain to me
this, you know, investigation.
Okay, but explain to me why this investigation is a stain on the country, as the president said. I mean, if you look at the number of indictments, the Russians who've been called in, this is an investigation into the hacking of the very fundamental basis of democracy in this
It's an investigation that needs to happen. We've got to get to the bottom of this. The amount of corruption, or excuse me, that the interference that the Russians were conducting while President Obama was president, probably while President Bush was president. The Russians have been trying to influence our elections for decades and decades, back to Soviet days. We need to put our fingers on this. The Russians are still trying to interfere in our elections today. What the Democrats are trying to do in this, especially with an election coming up, is trying to commingle this investigation with Russian interference in our elections with President Trump either benefiting from this or being a part of this. He is not. Everything we have seen Robert Mueller move forward with in terms of the indictments have not touched the president. They have touched the Russians. They have brought even, you know, the Paul Manafort situation, which again, you know, tax evasion, you know, which is a crime that should be punished. But again, the president I think the president is expressing his frustration against what the investigation is versus the way that this is being spun in this narrative of trying to weave President Trump's legitimacy as president around.
Can we get a president to express the same level of frustration about Russian meddling? Can't we get a president who's going to focus primarily on protecting the United States?
In my back of my mind, I keep hearing Barack Obama saying, you know, to Mitt Romney, dismissing him, saying, you know, you need to get your mentality out of
also
the
went to Capitol Hill and spoke to Mitch McConnell, and McConnell refused
I'm seeing the words from President Obama dismissing in totality.
But the only problem
exactly
is he wasn't under investigation, though.
Yeah. Let's go to David, though, because David, to Charles's point about this investigation, because we keep hearing this all the time, this investigation should focus on the Russia part of the, you know, the election, the meddling. It's got nothing to do with Donald Trump. He hasn't even been named. I mean, we don't know what Mueller's got. We know that a lot of people around Trump have actually been charged and are under investigation, have been called in to testify. So these two things are not mutually exclusive, are they?
Well, we know that there has been Russian interference. What Special Counsel Mueller is supposed to figure out is whether there was coordination between the Trump campaign and that Russian interference. And then he's supposed to see whether there was obstruction of justice that occurred with regard to it. And he seems like he's following his mandate, and he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. The amount of time that Mueller's taking is not a very long time. My investigations took longer than this, and I didn't have all the blowback and all the hassle by being tweeted every day and put down every day like Mueller is by Trump.
Yeah, it's interesting because if they can't shut it down, because it seems that politically Donald Trump can't do that, the best next thing to do is to call time.
We believe that the investigation should be brought to a close. We think they're at the end of it. They should render their report, put up, I mean, I guess if we were playing poker, we're not. We said put up or shut up. What do you got?
Okay, so 1 year, 2 months, 17 days ago, Mueller was appointed special counsel. Compared to Benghazi inquiry, lasted just over 2 years. Watergate, 1 year, 3 months. Nixon resigned from office after the release of the recordings that had him talking to his staff, ordering them to stop the FBI investigation. And the Mac Daddy of them all, Whitewater, 6 years, 9 months. So, Mo, finally to you.
Right.
Republicans have patience, it seems, when the Clintons are being investigated. Not so much patience when it's Donald Trump.
Well, this is all the politics of it, but there's also a PR strategy. This is about delegitimizing this investigation in the eyes of the American people, because ultimately, when Robert Mueller does come forth with this report or recommendations, it's going to be left up to the people to decide, and then Congress will either act or not act. But specifically, Republican Congress people will be reflecting what their constituencies are feeling about the investigation. And if anything, this PR campaign provides cover for the Congress people.
And just with regards to the investigation so far, David, when we look at the number of indictments, where Mueller is, they've already, the trial of Manafort is already underway. Where does that stand in your experience with sort of other similar special counsels?
Well, I think Mueller has made very significant progress. He's obtained a lot of indictments. He's obtained 3 or 4 guilty pleas. And he seems like he's going with a very even keel. He's, I think, got a big stick. He doesn't have a lot of, he doesn't talk tough. He doesn't respond. He can't. But I think the indictments are coming. As you say, the Manafort trial is going forward. And it looks like he has a very strong case.
As Zeleny mentioned, this could wrap up very quickly if the president actually sat down one-on-one with Robert Mueller. Once again, here's the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani.
We're still negotiating. We haven't stopped negotiating with them. The most recent letter, they sent us a proposal. We responded to their proposal. They took about 10 days, and yesterday we got a letter back from them. And now we're in the process of responding to their proposal.
Okay, CNN is reporting Mueller continues to seek the interview, but the pace of discussions continues to proceed glacially. 2 additional sources told CNN. The sources said it seems Mueller is willing to do some response in writing, but there would still be an in-person interview. Special counsel seemed like he wanted to get some combo, some agreement. The sources said the ball is now in Trump team's court. The sources would not say how long the lawyers would take to respond. So, Charles, Donald Trump is never going to sit down for an interview with the special counsel investigators, is he? Really?
This is all the president is being advised not to by his White House, counsel, most likely by his external counsel. I don't think we're going to see a situation where the president's going to be interviewed by the special counsel. Again, I don't believe that the president is the focus of this. I don't believe that the president is the focus of this investigation. I mean, with the other investigations that you had just referenced, there were crimes being committed by the sitting president of the United States. That's not the situation that's going on.
It wasn't for Whitewater either. That's why the investigation is underway. Whitewater was real estate deals that went back to the 70s.
It was a situation that the special prosecutor is looking at right now is Russian interference in the election
and obstruction of justice, which followed.
And through that, we do not, the investigation, the indictments, even as much as the Paul Manafort stuff, this has all been on the periphery. We haven't seen any, there's no real smoking gun here.
Yeah, but Mueller is like the submarine. He sort of, surfaces every now and then. We get a glimpse of what he got, that he sort of goes deep again, and we sort of have no idea, and then, we see a little bit more later on. So, at this point, to say, there's nothing there, it's just incredibly premature.
Yeah, and excuse the analogy and metaphor, but I'll say if you're going to go after a mob boss, you don't start with the mob boss. You get the low-level guys on the street and have them tell you about what they know about the organization, and then you start working your way to the mob boss. For them to say that they want to speak to the president means that the president's testimony is central and key to what Robert Mueller is trying to do. It doesn't mean that it's everything, but it's something. And I don't believe that you're going to ask for an interview unless you're ready to subpoena if he doesn't want to sit down.
David, could Mueller wrap this up without a one-on-one interview with Trump?
He absolutely could, and that's probably what he's going to have to end up doing, because for 8 months he's tried to sit down and have an interview with Trump and just have his questions answered. And then Trump's side wants written questions, they want to meander around, and eventually they have to give the president a subpoena. And that's, of course, a big constitutional crisis and battle. If he gave the president a subpoena, the president resisted it, and it went to the courts. That would not be a good
you mean the conservative-leaning court now with, what is it, which is about to have like an overwhelming number of Republican-appointed Supreme Court justices?
The conservative-leaning Nixon court voted 8-0 that Nixon had to comply with the subpoena. That's the risk for Trump, but the risk for Mueller is what if he goes to a conservative court like that and Mueller loses? Can you imagine how he'd be lampooned by Trump?
Yeah, okay. We'll leave it there. Interesting times as always. So, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you all being with us.